Welcome to the Bojack Podcast Horseman Obviously. This is episode 10. My name is Dominic and I'm joined by Matthew.
Hello.
The aim of this podcast is for me to convince Matthew that Bojack Horseman is the greatest animated TV show of all time. In this episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 10, One Trick Pony. Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Summer's finally arrived. It's been really hot for the last couple of weeks. So, do you like hot weather? Do you like it like this?
Do you know what?
Too much.
I was having a conversation with someone else the other day, and I said, as I've got older, I've appreciated the warm weather more.
Yeah.
Just feeling the warmth when you're outside.
Yeah.
And it warm your blood and warm your skin. I've enjoyed, but I always used to be quite a cold weather person.
Yeah.
I actually used to prefer the snow and the freshness of a cold day.
Yeah. No, I do like cold weather, but I think this year I've noticed how much of what a better mood I'm in when it's sunny all day.
Matthew, do you want to just summarise the episode for us?
It establishes a pretty big time jump early on in the episode. I can't remember which character it is, but someone says it's been 2 months since the last episode. Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter are married. The premise of the episode is they're making a film about the theft of the D from the Hollywood sign, but it's all just messed up. Bojack is a character in the film, obviously, but Bojack isn't playing Bojack. Bojack's playing Mr. Peanut Butter, and someone else is playing Bojack. The whole show is centered around the production of this film, which just gets more and more silly as the episode goes on. Todd is still working for Mr. Peanut Butter and has established quite a antagonistic relationship with Bojack. And at the end of the episode, we finally get to see what Diane's been working on with Bojack's book.
So this is directed by Jay-Z Gonzalez and it's written by Raphael Bob Waxberg and Laura Gutin. We start the episode on the set of the movie where Bojack is doing a romantic scene with actress who we later find out is Naomi Watts. What I actually just realised as well when I rewatched it this time was this scene at the start is the same scene that we see repeated throughout the episode, but we see it get more convoluted each time as Todd and Quentin Tarantino basically just go off in their own world and start adding more and more. And like you said, it does get a bit ridiculous, which we'll talk about later. At the end of this scene, we actually cut to a Ryan Seacrest type interviewing Bojack and Mr. Peanut Butter. And he says he's on the set of this movie called Mr. Peanut Butter's Hollywood Heist.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I like the title of his show.
Yes.
Excess Hollywood.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure there's a show, or there's something in America that's Access Hollywood.
Yes, I think I've heard of that as well, yeah.
And they've changed access to excess, which is obviously a commentary on the excess of Hollywood lifestyle.
Okay.
And now the D has been taken from the Hollywood sign, so everyone just refers to it as Hollywood, as if this is gradually... We saw in a previous episode as well. Was it the prison bit?
The prison episode is where... Well, the one he escapes is the one where they steal the D.
But they change it to the Hollywood ball.
Yes, yeah. So halfway through that episode, we start referring to it as Hollywood instead of Hollywood because the D's gone.
So watching this now that this is being taken on more and more, I understand that the concept of it being Hollywood stems from the idea that the D has been taken from the sign, so everyone reads it as Hollywood. But I don't know if there's a deeper commentary on woo culture, like spiritual nonsense kind of. Okay. That's the derogatory term that people use for non-scientific practices.
Okay.
Whether that's pagan practices or it seems to be all bundled into this.
Right. So
this concept of woo.
So are you drawing a similarity between Hollywood culture and not nonsense sciences, but Because if you're talking about spirituality and like
more esoteric, abstract belief system.
Yeah, so you're almost sort of saying that the Hollywood culture is one of these
It could be. I don't know if I'm just reaching too far with that. Maybe it's a commentary on my own journey, because as a man that was previously all about science, and I've recently been delving into more abstract or spiritual belief systems, this term woo has come up a lot in my life.
But in a negative context.
It depends. It depends how you take it. If I'm accused of believing in some woo practices,
that sounds quite negative.
Yeah, personally, I don't care.
Okay.
But some people might see it as being negative. But it's difficult because like it's a catch-all term for many different concepts.
Okay. I think I'm going to use the word like lifestyle.
Okay. Yeah.
Like this, and I quite like that if you're sort of agreeing with that, because the way I see the Hollywood, and I think it might be a simpler level, is just that it's pointing out the stupidity of people in the culture who just believe anything that they're shown.
Yeah.
So they because now they seen a sign that says Hollywood, they're like, oh, hang on, I don't live in Hollywood, I live in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So and I think that, but then also maybe, I mean, what is a name of a place anyway?
Yeah.
Like they are always changing, and
absolutely.
So theoretically, it could just be, okay, we're now going to call it Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, my hometown, Chesterfield. It was originally a Roman name, Kesterfeld.
Okay.
So that's changed over time anyway. So it's just a natural.
Yeah, so it could be a natural thing. But I think, I do see it as a bit of a dig at the society.
Yeah. Maybe I was just reading into it too much, but when I saw the Holly Woo, and I was like, okay, maybe that is a little...
No, I think...
A little not to abstract or esoteric beliefs or lifestyles, as you...
No, you're right. And I think if people are that ingrained in the lifestyle of Hollywood or Hollywood, then there is a culture and a lifestyle with that. So maybe that does work.
Well, like I said, maybe I'm just projecting my own recent biases on these because I have been exploring, quote unquote, more woo.
That's it.
Ideas.
You're not the first person to project something of themselves on this podcast, actually. Ryan Seacrest type then adds that he's talking to the star of the film and his real life inspiration. So he's talking to Bojack and Mr. Peanut Butter. And Bojack's face is very displeased with this because in his head, Mr. Peanut Butter isn't the inspiration for this film. He is the inspiration of the film. It was his idea to steal the D and give it to Diane. And Mr. Peanut Butter has stolen this idea that he had and is now an inspiration to people. Mr. Peanut Butter says he's over the moon to be producing this movie about his daring exploits. And Bojack replies, yes, your daring exploits. Mr. Peanut Butter also says that it's a great treat to be played by his good amigo, dare I say, best amigo, because he's in this world where he thinks Bojack's his friend or his best friend. And I feel like you don't think that Bojack thinks they're friends still. Or do you like, because we sort of use this sort of idea that they're enemies or it's his rival. Yes, rival. But Mr. Peanut Butter's, well, whether it's just for the camera, maybe this is one of those things where stars have to sort of pretend to be getting on. And
Bojack's not stupid. He's many things, but he's not stupid. And he must realise that he's not got many people in his life. And Mr. Peanut Butter is one of the most regular.
He's always happy to see Bojack.
He's artists in his life.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I think Bojack consciously still refuses to admit that he's his friend, but I think subconsciously he understands that Mr. Peanut Butter is one of the most important people in his life because he doesn't have many people in his life.
And maybe he's always been a bit mean to him, and so he feels like he's got to be a bit mean continuously.
Maybe.
As well. He doesn't want to show that he's wrong or something, so he has to, or he's wrong in what he did before, so he has to continue.
He certainly looks down on Mr. Peanut Butter.
But then he wouldn't do that as a friend. He wouldn't look down on a friend.
No. He thinks he's superior to him.
So Mr. Peanut Butter even tries to set up a joke where he says, we're so in tune, we even finish each other's and he's waiting for Bojack to say sentences, but Bojack says it never happens. And then as Bojack says happens, Mr. Peanut Butter says happens at the same time to try and prove that they are thinking about the same word or they are thinking along the same lines. But I quite like that Bojack probably feels annoyed that they've said the same word at the same time because he tried so deliberately not to say sentence.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Peanut Butter really believes this, though. I think he's just playing up to the camera.
Yeah, is that sort of like often like the celebrities have to look like their friends to make the move to be on TV and
it's like, hey, look at me, I have friends. Look how much this guy likes me.
Mm-hmm. A Ryan Seacrest type then turns to Bojack and says, "You haven't worked in quite a while. In fact, I thought you were dead. You must be so grateful to be working again and also alive, which again, I thought you were not. How did you get involved in this?" So this is, again, it's a bit of a thing of if you're not working, you might as well be dead, sort of thing in this Hollywood. Do you know what? I think I might always say Hollywood as well instead of Hollywood. Just for this. In this Hollywood culture, you might as well be dead if you're not working.
I think it's a good way to differentiate between the real Hollywood and the Hollywood that's portrayed in Bojack.
Okay, yes, it is an exaggeration.
Absolutely, yeah.
This then leads us to a cutscene where they're in Princess Caroline's office and she's convincing Bojack to take the role. But Bojack says, "I stole the D and then he stole my stealing of it, which makes him an idea thief, which is much less cool than a thief, which is what I am." Princess Caroline says, "This movie is a huge opportunity. Quentin Tarantino is known for revitalizing dead careers." She goes on to say, "This could do for you what Reservoir Dogs did for Rin Tin Tin."
Another Tarantino reference.
Oh, to the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know what it was, so I thought, which actor is it in Reservoir Dogs? Mm-hmm. And I had a look at all the actors and I couldn't find, I didn't see one that I thought was similar to that. Mm-hmm. But then I found out, well, to be fair, I think it's just shoehorned in actually, but Rin Tin Tin was a famous German shepherd that starred in 27 Hollywood movies.
Okay.
And is a very famous dog, basically, but maybe a bit like whatever dog played Lassie.
Yeah.
Like he was like the star of all these movies.
Oh, well, okay.
And I think I haven't written it down now, but I think he got offered one of the first ever Oscars, but they decided not to do it because they thought it would take away from the credit.
First ever Oscars, like in the 30s.
Yeah, because he's starred in 27 movies in the 1920s, 30s. So it was just, but it would have been just before the Oscars then that he was.
So what's the connection to Reservoir Dogs?
I don't know. No, he was a dog. Rin Tin Tin was a famous dog. So in Reservoir Dogs. It's pretty loose. And that's why I think
if he was a dog that was alive in the 30s, how can Reservoir Dogs resurrect his career?
I think it's more playing on the anthropomorphic world where these animals are actually people and these people are actually animals.
Okay.
And the idea that if there was a actual dog that was an actor, then that seems like an appropriate character for this world, if that makes sense. So basically, I don't think there is a connection apart from the fact that this dog's in the title and this was a famous dog.
Okay.
But Bojack asks, why isn't he playing himself? Basically, if he's going to be in this movie, he might as well play himself. And Princess Caroline explains that the Bojack character is already taken and being played by Wallace Shawn. And then this gives us a cutscene where she's convincing Wallace Shawn to do the part because he's got this addiction to buying expensive pieces of art.
Rothko's.
Yes, yeah. I didn't know who it was, yeah. Just something on Wallace Shawn, because he references a couple of films he's been in the episode, but I've not seen any or not really heard of any of them. Mm-hmm. But what I did recognise him from is Rex in Toy Story.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite nice.
That's nice, yeah. Does he play himself in this? Because ever since the Andrew Garfield incident, I'm curious as to whether people play themselves. And when the end credits came up, I saw Naomi Watts plays herself.
It is Wallace Shawn's voice. He does act it. He does play himself. Wallace ends the conversation with Princess Caroline by saying, "Fine, I'll do the job." And then we cut back to Bojack also saying, "Fine, I'll do the job." Maybe it's reinforcing the fact that Princess Caroline does have to overly persuade these actors to be in movies so she can get her cut.
Mm-hmm. So what's Bojack's motivation for doing it?
Well, this is one of the projects or in the episode where Bojack goes to see, when he goes to see Herb, he says before it, "I want some work, I want a job."
Mm-hmm.
And then after that episode, he's like, "I don't care about any job." So theoretically, he's asked her for a bit of work. But then the only other bit of evidence is that she mentions the fact that this could do for you what Reservoir Dogs did for Rin Tin Tin. So she's trying to say that this might be your big break again.
And he's willing to accept that, even though he's playing a role that he doesn't want to play, portraying someone that he professes he doesn't like, while someone else plays him in the movie. And throughout the episode,
he complains about it.
He complains about it, and the role gets more and more degrading. Throughout this whole episode, I'm like, why is Bojack doing this?
Well, I suppose once you've accepted the job, there is contracts in play, isn't there?
Yeah.
So there might be a thing of once you've accepted it, there's not going back. So he has to just complain. Basically.
Well, this is the question I had from the very start when a Ryan Seacrest type is interviewing Mr. Peanut Butter and Bojack together on the sofa, and Bojack's clearly trying to imply that he doesn't like Mr. Peanut Butter. If he really doesn't like him that much, why is he playing him in a film? Like, I don't understand why Bojack's doing this in the first place. Yeah,
the only thing I can think of is that it's that thing that we've talked about is of him wanting to be relevant again.
Yeah.
So, this might be the only job he's been offered in the last 18 years.
Oh, also, he's playing a role in the concept of the film is stolen from his original plot. Like,
he's got so many grievances against the film.
He shouldn't. I just find it really weird.
Yeah, but maybe all I can think of is that he gets offered so little work, and Princess Caroline has just managed to essentially convince him enough that there might be a bit of relevance from it that slightly outweighs the apprehensions that he has about the film in the first place.
Or is this another reflection on Bojack's shallowness and lack of integrity?
Yeah, he's willing to do any work.
He's willing to play the main part in this film, which he, in principle, stands against in every way, but he's willing to do it for the sake of his career, his pride.
Do you think most actors have the power to turn down roles that they not morally object to, but or do you think they take most? Obviously, the ones at the top get to do that.
I think it'll be on a case by case basis.
Yeah,
but famously there's loads of stories of actors that got offered big roles but turned them down.
Well, are you thinking of The Matrix as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then, do you know it's going to be a big film?
Exactly. Yeah. You don't know.
But maybe that's what Bojack's thinking, and that's what Princess Caroline was saying. Like, look, this could just be a really, really big film, and you will be a movie star, not just a TV star. You will be in that. You could be in one of the biggest movies ever. So maybe that draw of extra fame and recognition is outweighing the moral objection he has to the film.
I would like to think that most Hollywood, top level Hollywood actors aren't as awful people as Bojack is as well.
Okay.
Maybe that, I don't,
I'd like to think that.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is. I'd like to think
yes. Oh yeah, I just want to also mention as well, after he says, "Fine, I'll do the dumb movie," Bojack goes on to say, "But if you find me in the bathtub with open wrists tomorrow and the words 'I hate my agent' smeared across the walls in blood, you'll know why." Maybe this is just a bit of Will's voice acting that I like, and the writing coming together quite nicely. But yeah, I like that he's at the end he's got to say "you'll know why," but also like he's that like over dramatic that. To be fair, it reminds me a bit like what a teenager would say. Like they're just going, I'm just going to go and kill myself then if I can't go to the party.
Yeah.
So it's just like showing his sort of immaturity, basically.
Yes.
But this brings us back into the room with the interview with a Ryan Seacrest type. And Bojack says, so obviously I'm thrilled to be here, just thrilled. So it's sort of just showing the contradiction that he's making to on camera and off camera. After the opening credits, we find Diane in Mr. Peanut Butter's kitchen, and she's trying to get some of the refreshments from the table. But this crew member keeps knocking the food and drink away from her and saying cast and crew only. Bojack approaches Diane and says, it feels like they haven't been together since the wedding, and it's like they're coming back to school after summer vacation. They then go on to make a couple of jokes about the sort of phrases that kids might say when they're going back to school. But this gives us a bit of an insight into Diane's life at school, where she says, and I think she's saying it as a joke, but it feels like it's based on a real experience she had. Or it starts as a joke, but then it ends up with her saying the cheerleaders stuffed her into the locker and wrote virgin slut on her head and made her eat lipstick.
You missed the best bit of that joke.
Oh, okay. So, when she says, Diane points out to these cheerleaders, how could I be a virgin and a slut? Then they make her eat the lipstick. Yeah, it's sort of like trying to win an argument with intelligence often isn't the right. You don't use the word nerd. If you're a nerd and you're being beaten up by the jocks, you're not going to win the argument by pointing out that it's wrong.
No, but I do think it's a interesting insight into the fact that Diane was intellectually strong even when she was a kid in high school.
Yeah, but maybe that's why, again, she didn't get on with her sporting family.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's definitely, I feel like she's setting that tone as the school nerd, to use the stereotype.
The best people.
I only use nerd in like the stereotypical way of movies, and
I mean,
because of course there is no such thing as like some of. Well, no, I'm not going to digress.
I mean, nerd in the best possible way.
Okay.
As a self-professed nerd.
Yes. Bojack also makes a bit of a joke about meeting waitresses, which leads Diane to say, "Oh, I'd like to meet the person that finally gets Bojack to settle down." And Bojack says, "Why would I want to settle down? I'm 50." It's supposed to be him admitting his age, but also not recognizing his age and maybe feeling embarrassed about his age in front of Diane.
You also missed the best part of that joke for me.
I couldn't read the whole. I didn't know what to write down. To be fair, mate.
So she's asking him about if he's met anyone.
Yes.
If he's like seeing women or anything.
Yes.
And he goes through this list of females that he's met, and it just so happens that they were serving him in a restaurant. It's not someone that he's met for a romantic date. It was just like, I have literally met a female.
Yes.
But she was working and serving me.
Right. Oh, okay. I didn't really get that from the joke. But then,
she's like...
Because there's the bit at the end where he goes, he met someone else. Was it a hooker?
He said, I think he's like, I met someone at P.F. Chang's. And she goes, was she a... And like, she says, was she a... Implying she goes, like, waitress as well?
Yes.
So he finishes the sentence and says, hooker? Yes.
But she wanted to be a waitress.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a nice joke there, which I didn't write all the way down. Yeah. But I did appreciate that. But yes, Diane says that she's sending the first draft over to Pinky this afternoon. But she also says she's excited for Bojack to read it, but she's also cripplingly nervous about it. But Bojack replies to her and says, if reading a book written by you is as great as spending actual time with you, I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. But what do I know about books? I'm just a dumb actor. Yeah, maybe that's the first... Diane saying that she's cripplingly nervous, I think, is the first indication that the book might not be what Bojack thought it was going to be about. We now get another excess Hollywood interview with a Ryan Seacrest type. But this time he's interviewing Naomi Watts, the actor who we saw kissing Bojack in the scene earlier. And yes, this is voiced by Naomi Watts as well. A Ryan Seacrest type asks Naomi what attracted you to the role of Diane. And Naomi says, I just keep getting pigeonholed as these complex characters in highly acclaimed movies. For once, I would just love to phone it in and play a two-dimensional girl in a rom-com with no inner life of her own. That's kind of the reason I got into the business. So that's obviously just a massive joke about, and as we go through this, there's more jokes about it, but a joke about women not having credible roles in Hollywood. A Ryan Seacrest type then just replies with, haha, you said words. So again, demonstrating like the role of this Ryan Seacrest character is just to give the actors an opportunity. Well, to actually, I'm thinking even more now, the role of this presenter is to give the movie studios a chance for their actors to present the movie so they can make money.
I think it also just shows you how stupid he is.
Yeah, shallow and yeah.
It shows that he's not listening as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, the baseline joke is he's not listening to what she's saying, because she's saying something. Care. Yeah, it's not important. Well, that's what I mean. It's not important what she says. She just has to say words. He then brings up that the actors are staying in character between takes, and Naomi explains that the director insists upon it because it makes things a lot simpler.
Okay. Now you said that. Now that all comes together later on. Okay.
Well, it actually cuts here to the kitchen where Quentin Tarantino is calling for Bojack, but he means the person playing Bojack. Yeah. So I think Mr. Peanut Butter, I think Wallace Shawn answers first, and then he's like, no, if I wanted Bojack, I'd ask. And there's a whole little joke there, because Naomi finishes on, it really cuts down on the confusion when clearly it's adding to the confusion.
I wish they'd played on this more,
Okay.
Because I think that it's an old style joke.
Yeah.
Joke. But it reminds me of like Blackadder humor or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Like calling someone a name and then it's not the right person that comes over, and I don't know. I think I would like to have seen them play on that more in the episode.
I'm also just going to bring up the fact that Quentin Tarantino is a spider. And I suppose it's based on his name, isn't it? Rather than any characteristics that he has. Overall, I quite liked him as a spider. I like some of the animations, like when he kisses Todd's face and he's using his little feelers around his mouth to kiss him. And he does a couple of things that I quite like, basically, as a spider.
Okay. I thought the character was pretty weak.
Okay. Oh, I don't think I don't feel like it's a very good, because obviously this isn't voiced by Quentin Tarantino. So maybe they've gone in a slightly different direction with it. But yeah, like I said, it's not really, I don't think it's a very good example of him, but I think it's a nice example of a spider as a real person.
Okay. I'm not...
I think I've written down some of the points later. But...
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't really... Yeah, didn't...
Okay.
Didn't...
That's right.
It's a bit two-dimensional.
Okay. Maybe that's because it's not. Well, no, the other characters aren't.
Like, compared to the turtle, the producer, the Martin Scorsese character.
Lenny Turtle.
Yeah, like, he's brilliant. Like, so all of his mannerisms.
And he's good in this as well.
Yeah, the way that he moves, the way that he talks. He's got so much character and so much individuality.
Okay, yeah.
And Quentin Tarantino just doesn't have that for me.
Okay. So also, like, just a visual joke, we've got some ants as part of the crew and they're carrying some of the equipment between them. But this brings us to Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd. They're both sitting in the chairs and Mr. Peanut Butter says, show business, the great equalizer. And Todd questions it by saying, is that what it is? Obviously, Todd knows that it's not typically a very equalizing industry, because Mr. Peanut Butter then asks Todd to spritz him, which Todd does. So this assistant, this role that he's got as West Coast Vice President, he's basically spritzing him with water.
Yeah.
Mr. Peanut Butter asks Todd if he's ever been on a movie set before, and Todd replies with, no, sir, Mr. Peanut Butter. And Mr. Peanut Butter makes the joke, saying, please, Mr. Peanut Butter was my father's name. And he pauses and says, but it's also my name. But this leads Mr. Peanut Butter to walk up to Bojack on the couch and, in his words, try to produce him. Mr. Peanut Butter is finding it really hard to deal with the fact that his character self is wearing a crew neck t-shirt when he only wears V-neck t-shirts. He says that's not real life. I wear a V-neck when you're wearing a crew neck, so it's not a very realistic film. But then Bojack goes off on a rant about how none of this movie is very realistic because it's not how it actually happened.
I didn't get this because this is a theme that runs through the whole episode.
Yes.
And I don't understand what is this a commentary on? Is this the fact that Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't really have a role in this, so he's just fixated on this one small thing, or is it something that he really does care about? Is it about paying attention to the details? Like, I didn't get what this through line was.
I think just for the episode, I think actually it's basically just a way to keep Mr. Peanut Butter in the episode.
Okay.
But what I like about it maybe is the idea that producers do get fixated, or someone involved in the movie will get fixated on a really small thing that doesn't actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then they spend all this time and effort trying to get this small problem fixed when people doing the actual work in the movie, making actual decisions, are elsewhere. But yeah, no, it's a little thing. And I think mainly it is just to give him a few lines in the movie, to be fair. We then move on to Naomi sitting in the bedroom with Diane, and she's sort of trying to copy what Diane's doing, and she explains she's just trying to get into her character's head. And then after she sort of mimicked Diane's voice a bit, she asks, what was it like to get married? Was it everything we ever dreamed of since we were little? And this causes Diane to say when she was little, she dreamed of getting a MacArthur grant for her zine about how all the girls at the school were bitches. So again, this is bringing up the fact that she didn't have a very good time at school.
And the fact that she's always been interested in writing.
Yes, yeah. But I didn't look it up. What's a zine?
Oh, it's short.
Is it just like a short?
It's short. I believe it's short for magazine.
Yeah,
but it's like
it's not going to write a whole magazine about.
No, but it's more like a leaflet or a pamphlet.
Okay.
So before the days of the internet.
Yeah.
So like.
Oh, so before like a blog. Before. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, because I went to uni in Derby and I was in a band. There was a couple of people then that were still writing zines. It'll be the local punk rock scene.
Yeah.
Would be like a zine, which is like, it might only be like one sheet of A4 paper.
But it was like everything going on. And
but it's like, printed, copied.
Yeah.
And someone might draw it or write it. For like, and then just hand it out to like the local community.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were more intensive, and you'd like pay money for them, like 50p for a zine or something. They were huge in like early skateboarding communities and stuff like that. Like it's like,
also like maybe like tips and tricks as well. And
all kinds of different things.
Whatever you
so like. Yeah, I believe it's short for magazine.
Yeah, and it is
just like a really tiny little magazine that's like community produced or like self-produced kind of thing.
So Diane then goes on to say, look, the wedding was great, but that's not real life. I mean, I guess I got a happy ending, but every happy ending has the day after the happy ending, right? So the wedding was so much fun. It was the happiest day of my life. But you know, what does that say about all the days that I have left? This is one of my favourite lines, or it's a line that stuck with me. I'll use the phrase top 10 lines in the show. This is another bit where it's discussing the whole idea of the show. And it's Raphael telling us about the ups and downs that we go through. You will have a happy bit, but you then you might have an unhappy bit, and then you might have a happy bit again. On its base level, I actually just quite like the calling out of the cliche that the wedding is the happiest day of my life.
Yeah.
And I think, well, you do some wedding photography, don't you? Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you've ever heard people say it was like the happiest day of my life.
I think it's true for a lot of people.
Okay. So what does that mean then if that is the happiest day of her life. And it's a quarter, and it's typically, 25 to about a quarter, a third of the way through your life.
I don't think it is necessarily the happiest day of your life. It might be the happiest day of your life up to that point.
Okay, and it's the phrase, so they're saying the phrase right. It's just a pedantic, me being pedantic.
Yeah, it should be so far.
Yeah, okay.
This is the happiest day of my life so far.
Yes.
I mean, but technically, you're only alive until now.
Yes.
So this is my entire life.
Okay. Yeah.
So it literally is the happiest day of my life.
Yeah, if I say I know you my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your reference point is only until now. So until now, it is the happiest day of your life. And there is something special about weddings. Yeah, it should be celebrated.
But going off that, I would say, I think there's an interesting point that Diane's making about like the wedding just being a show. Like it's not, the wedding isn't real life. A wedding isn't marriage. It's a...
Just before I forget, while I think about it, what I hear a lot is when you ask people what's the happiest day of your life, they'll use this, if they've got children, they'll usually say the day my kids were born. And then they'll follow up by saying, followed by the day I got married. So as far as like happiest days of your life, I think for most people that are still happily married, it's probably up there.
Yeah, but I'm sort of thinking about the idea of the spectacle that we put around the wedding day.
See, it's interesting that you say spectacle.
Okay.
I would use the word celebration.
Okay, celebrate, yeah, okay. Let's put it back to Diane. I think what Diane is saying with, look, the wedding was great, but that's not real life, is she was saying that we put a lot of importance onto a wedding, but do we put that same importance onto keeping a marriage together in the difficult, like, do we the spectacle is what other people see, is the wedding. No one else, all those people aren't in your living room 10 years later when you've got nothing left to talk about, or you're arguing, or the honeymoon period is over. Like that's a marriage.
Yeah, so
like that's real life. The wedding is just we're all dressing up. We don't, even the dressing up, we don't dress like that in real life. We're putting on a show to other people.
Yeah, so I didn't see this at all in this little speech from Diane. This idea that you have that Diane's monologue is a commentary on marriage in society, I didn't see that at all. Or what I got from Diane's monologue was a reflection of her unhappiness. Yeah, she enjoyed the wedding. It was a nice day. Weddings generally are. But deep down, she knows that her and Mr. Peanut Butter aren't the most compatible couple. So her answer is, yes, I enjoyed the wedding. It was a fun party, but I'm not happy in the marriage.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely there as well. I'm picking out lots of different bits, unfortunately.
What you're saying is, I didn't pick up on that.
No,
I just picked up on Diane's own reflections of her life.
No, and maybe I'm drilling down into one sentence too much. Maybe the sentence is setting up everything else that she's saying she's not happy with her life. So that doesn't mean that other people can't have a wedding and then be happy for the rest of their lives. But I think she is making a point about, I don't know if she's making a point, or whether Raphael's making a point about, again, I'm going to take it back to like, I think she even says, yeah, so when she just says, I think the real point of this whole, well, there's two real points to it. One, to pick up on what you said, was, yes, I think she is having doubts about the marriage because, like you said, she enjoyed the day, but that was just a day. It doesn't actually mean that she's changed much of her opinions, and maybe she just wanted something nice to do, not to degrade people that get married or have a wedding, but it's just a nice thing. It's an enjoyable thing. But also the thing for me about when she says, I got a happy ending, but every happy ending has the day after the happy ending. And that's what I feel, again, is another part of this show, is trying to explain that in a movie or in media, the ending isn't the ending. Everything for me sometimes feels complete. Okay, maybe stories would be pretty difficult to enjoy if they never actually finished. But I think we have this idea that there will be a happy ending. And I don't think that's a very good way to accept life. I feel like it's convenient to believe that, and it adds motivation. Like we sort of probably need that motivation that'll be a happy ending so that we continue on this journey. But ultimately, it might not be a happy ending. You might have your happy ending, and then you have to work out how to deal with the rest of the time after that.
Well, define an ending.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe in stories that we're told, we're always told there is an ending.
There's only one ending.
Yeah. But not always in the... I keep saying stories. I don't know whether I need to be more specific or...
No, I mean, there's only one ending for all of us.
Yes, death. Yeah.
So when you say happy ending...
The sweet release.
It's not really an ending.
That was the nihilistic.
That was. But unless it is the sweet release, it's not really an ending, is it?
No.
There's no such thing as an ending. Because every end is a new beginning.
Yes, there is that.
So you can't have a happy ending if the whole concept of ending doesn't exist.
Yes, no, you're right. I found that is, but that's where I sort of go back to my point, I suppose, that it's up and down.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of the time we see finishes. A lot of the time we see stories finish at the up. I'm not saying you never hear about stories finishing on the down, but most of the time, to go back to horsing around, like, or your traditional sitcom or your mainstream movie, I feel like you have a happy ending.
Yeah.
But that's not real life.
It's
just
maybe for some people.
Okay.
For the more fortuitous people.
I think that's enough on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't see any of that. To say that, for you to say that that's one of your favourite lines in the whole show, I'm like, wow, okay. I didn't pay any attention to that.
So,
I was just like, this is basically Diane ranting about how she's not happy in her marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's not there. I don't think that's not there. I think that is there, and it's important that we get it's probably quite important that we see Diane's thoughts about marriage as we go along and the situation she's in. So on its base level, it's telling us about the character not being in a happy place at the moment. But like I say, I think it gives us a clue I think it's a message from the writer about the idea of the show.
Okay. And I don't. I think
But we do get a little bit of a joke from Naomi at the end of this monologue where she says, "Wow, we're such a Zoe," which is a callback to the Zoe and Zelda's episode.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the idea that she's not actually really listened to what Diane was saying, but she's like, "Oh, okay, you're that type of person, are you, that's just going to be cynical about everything or overthink everything." This takes us into the kitchen with Bojack and Todd. And Bojack very arrogantly says, "Oh, Todd, hold this for me." And he holds out his jacket and drops it to the floor. And he says, "Todd, my jacket's on the floor. You're supposed to hold my jacket so it doesn't go on the floor." Todd then says he now works for Mr. Peanut Butter after getting their names mixed up because of the director wanting to keep everyone's names the same between scenes. But then he then goes on to say, maybe this is my first chance to work on something big since his rock opera fell apart. And he says with a very suggestive tone, "I really messed up that huge career opportunity all by myself, didn't I?" And he's obviously hinting at the fact that he knows that Bojack sabotaged his rock opera. Bojack just looks very uncomfortable with this conversation. So they clearly haven't addressed the issue between themselves. Outside the house, director Quentin Tarantulino and Mr. Peanut Butter are sat in their chairs on the lawn, and Lenny Turtletub asks where he can grab some grub, and at which point Mr. Peanut Butter tells him that craft services are in the kitchen, so he very slowly walks off over to the kitchen, which is again setting up another little joke throughout this whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin then turns to everybody saying, I don't buy it. It's like there's something missing, but I can't put my finger on it. And someone pipes up and makes a suggestion that maybe it will sound better once we've added the music. And Quentin very angrily fires this person on the spot and then asks who brought this person, and he fires them as well. He then says, anybody else got any bright ideas? And everybody's looking quite nervous at themselves, like they don't want to make a suggestion because of the fear of being fired. Apart from Todd, who pops his hand up and says, oh, maybe make it more Diane-y. This is probably stupid, but this whole story is about how this guy is in love with Diane, right? But we don't know who she is or what she wants. I mean, maybe give her more lines or words or, I don't know, feelings or whatever. Mr. Peanut Butter's trying to cover for Todd, and he's like, oh, you can see him looking really nervous that Todd's making a suggestion because Mr. Peanut Butter thinks that Quentin's just going to fire him on the spot like the other people. But Quentin just sits still for a bit and then sort of initiates a slow clap himself with his multiple hands that he's got. And he says, this kid's a genius. Come back to my web. Let's talk about Diane's feelings and make this baby sing.
No, you want to talk about going deeper. Now's your time.
Okay.
So everything that Todd says is everything the viewer is thinking about Bojack Horseman.
Okay, go on. What, because they want to know, you think we want to know more about Diane rather than...
Literally in the previous scene, we're basically told that she's unhappy in her marriage.
Okay, yeah.
And throughout the whole of the first season, we've learned that Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter are together.
Yeah.
And she professes that they're happy together, whereas it's clear that there's something else going on. We as an audience know that she shouldn't be with Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yes.
But we don't know what she wants. And Todd literally says that they should include more of like how she's feeling and how she's thinking. Like, what's going on with Diane? Todd is the audience
saying we want to know why this lady is splitting people up. Yeah, because you're right, to be fair. I mean, we did have one episode pretty much about her where we saw her family.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a main character of the show, but she has a very big presence in the show. And you're right, they trickle down information to us.
I don't like the character at all.
Yeah.
I don't know what she wants.
But it feels like she's a main character.
Yeah. She's in it all the time. But all the other characters, I could tell you, like, what kind of personality they are, what their goals are, what their ambitions are. Whereas Diane, I ain't got a clue who she is.
No, you're right. It's very much been, the show up to now has been from Bojack's perspective.
Yeah, especially given the ending of the episode as well.
Yes. No, you're right. I think
because I'd say that was a huge twist and puts a completely different spin on Diane.
No, you're right. I think it does really... I think you're right with what the audience is thinking. So this is also where Mr. Peanut Butter, now that Todd is going off to talk to Quentin Tarantulino personally, Mr. Peanut Butter tries to get his issue of the V-neck T-shirt in there as well. We now go to Princess Caroline at the gym, where she gets a call from Bojack. And in this gym, we have a visual joke of the hamster running on the hamster wheel.
The second best visual joke in this scene.
Okay. Bojack says to Princess Caroline he's tired of this dog and pony show, which is obviously a joke about the show generally as well.
Because that's a phrase, isn't it?
Yes.
Dog and pony. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know whether Bojack means it as the joke.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the writers just sliding it in and He says the movie's done, Mr. Peanut Butter is annoying him, and there's too much honeydew in the fruit bowl. He then goes on to say he's just glad that his book is coming out soon and people will get an opportunity to see the real Bojack Horseman. Bojack also explains that Todd is being super weird and might be onto him about the rock opera, confirming again that they haven't actually addressed this issue, although Todd keeps hinting at it. He also thinks that he might be trying to sabotage him. But Princess Caroline just ends the call by saying, look, you just need to be a good soldier, do your job.
Can I just reference the visual joke? So Princess Caroline is in the gym going through a bunch of different exercise routines. All I've done for the last month pretty much is work and gym.
Yeah.
So I've been very focused on the gym. So I was very critical about what she was doing in the gym. And I was really focused on like, what training is she doing? And then the last thing is it's a cat scratching.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well done.
Naomi Watts then approaches Bojack and explains that they've taken loads of lines away from Bojack and given them to her because some dickweed called Todd thinks her character should be three-dimensional. And again, she finishes by ranting and saying, isn't this town sick of giving three-dimensional roles to women? When obviously the stereotype is that they don't get such complex roles. Bojack then sneers and mumbles about Todd, thinking that Todd might have done this to get back at him. So like he's not doing it because he thinks it would be good for the movie. He's doing it just to sabotage Bojack, basically. We then get a repeat of the first opening scene where Naomi now has more lines, and to emphasize how many lines and how much more complex her character has got, she says, I guess what I've been saying for the last 7 uninterrupted minutes, how can I forgive my father if I cannot forgive myself? And Bojack's response to that in the film is true that. To emphasize again, he hasn't got any lines and he now has the two-dimensional character. Naomi leaves the set and she walks past Lenny Turtletub, who is still on his way to getting some food from earlier in the episode. Naomi walks up to Diane and she says, now the movie's about Diane, she needs to get to know the real Diane. And she says, let's talk and talk until I am you and you are nothing but a hollowed out husk of your former self. And every thought and every feeling you ever had belongs to me and me alone. So do you like Sprite or are we more of a 7-Up girl? So again, there's like a bit of a common thread of like actors taking themselves too seriously in this show. But I quite like the end. The joke is that what she thinks is a deep level of thinking is what kind of drink she is, rather than what her childhood was like or what her emotional state is in certain situations.
I'm sure there's some online personality tests.
This says, well,
you.
Oh, you're a Sprite. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And again,
will be reflected at some part.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Zoe and Zelda thing again, isn't it?
Because am I right in thinking one of them's just lemonade and one of them's lime and lemonade? Whichever one's lime and lemonade is a superior one.
Diane explains that Naomi should really be talking to Bojack because Diane loves talking to him and they have great rapport. This causes Naomi to agree with her and go, oh, I'll go off and talk to Bojack then. But really, this is just Diane not wanting to engage with the actor. She it's bothering her. She's obviously not enjoying this whole filming process in the house where she's trying to live either, because she's not allowed to eat any of the food. So she's bothered by the filming in the house. She's probably not too happy in this marriage, or she's having doubts about the marriage. So she doesn't want to be talking and explaining that to somebody else. So she palms Naomi off to somebody else. So Bojack walks into the kitchen where Todd is and starts being very friendly to him, but Todd isn't having any of it.
The way that he says it as well is very weird. It's not like, do you want some food? He's like, oh, I've got some sloppy seconds of this food.
Yeah,
you can have if you want to. Like, it's very weird and he's clearly
trying to reach out, but the act that he's presenting isn't a friendly act.
It's very awkward.
Quentin Tranchellino then approaches the pairs and says, Todd, I heard you had a few more thoughts about the script. And Todd says, what if we made the Bojack character into a real shithead? And Tranchellino asks, is it really necessary? And Todd goes on to say, let's make him a real selfish asshole so the audience has someone to root against. And he also says, come to think of it, why does the movie have to take place on Earth? But just to go into this little section a bit, I like how unhappy Bojack is looking at this, because he's in earshot of this conversation. So he doesn't want the Bojack character to be an asshole. No. He wants it to be someone to like. Mm-hmm. But also, he feels this is Todd redirecting his rage at him towards the director and the character.
We'll later find out that's not the case.
Yes, we do. Mr. Peanut Butter has been in the kitchen and says, honeydew, more like, honey, do I enjoy eating it? Yes, I do, right? And this is the opposite to Bojack's reaction about the honeydew. Mm-hmm. Bojack moans about how the movie is going off the rails, referring to the fact that the movie is moving away from the original story, even though his original story is very different from the original story they were trying to portray. But Mr. Peanut Butter is still obsessed with the fact that Bojack is wearing a crew neck t-shirt when he wears a V-neck. And Mr. Peanut Butter says, you can't put your sunglasses in a crew neck. And as he keeps talking, Bojack takes the sunglasses off and puts them in the crew neck t-shirt, which leaves Mr. Peanut Butter completely shocked.
Yeah. I like the animation here as well.
Yeah, do the ears go up a little bit? And
yeah, the look on his face is it's very well done.
I think also with the way he was midway through the sentence, and it shocked him that much. So Bojack is now in the bedroom with Naomi Watts, and they're practicing some of their new lines. And Naomi's line is, the citizens of Planet D want their king back, but I'm more concerned about getting my self-esteem back after being in the shadow of powerful men for so long. So again, this is just showing us how the movie is developing and getting more and more convoluted. So Naomi says here, this is so typical. I just wanted to do something light and fun to distract me from the deep well of sadness that is my life.
That's probably more like it.
Yes, it is. And I think this is Diane. She is doing the Diane character here. Obviously, Bojack doesn't know. And I think, to be fair, I think after a first watch, you might not know.
I wasn't aware.
Or until the end, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the end of this episode, you realise that she's been in character.
Like I said,
because she reveals herself, doesn't she?
At the start, then, at the start of the podcast, when you said that the director insists they were in character all the time, that then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. I've seen the whole episode.
So this leads Naomi to start kissing Bojack, and they continue to make out under the covers. And Bojack says Naomi's name, but then Naomi interrupts and says, call me Diane. So at this point, Lenny finally arrives in the kitchen to get his food. But also in the kitchen, Naomi and Bojack are having a pretty messy makeout session. But Diane walks in and says she's finished the book and she's sent the draft to the publisher, which makes Bojack very excitedly throw Naomi off him and asks to read it. Diane says if he emails Pinky, he should be able to send him a copy for him to read, which leads Bojack to walk off saying to Naomi, keep the engine running, because if I know me, this book is going to give me a pretty big erection. I think this is Bojack acknowledging how much of a narcissist he is as well, which I quite like. I do quite like the delivery of the line again. I think Will does a good job of delivering it. But yeah, it just makes me smile a bit. And like I say, it's nice that Bojack has a bit of humility, really, to accept that he's a narcissist.
Mm-hmm. I won't say humility. I'd say self-awareness.
Okay, yeah, that's maybe a better word. But as Bojack's walking off, Diane says, keep an open mind, you'll love it, it's a work in progress. So she's throwing out a couple of phrases, and like trying to guard herself. So again, it's a second warning that she's giving Bojack that the book might not have the content that he expects it to. So at Penguin Publishing, things are looking pretty bad. The letters have fallen off the wall. Pinky answers the phone to Bojack, and Bojack asks for a copy to read. And Pinky explains it's not quite what we expected, but it's good. I'm telling you, this thing could really sell. So he's quite happy with it, but again, it's not what he might be, not what Bojack might be expecting.
I've seen Pinky's computer.
Yeah, it's a really old.
It's like this old,
an old Apple.
I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to be an old Apple.
No, I can see a rainbow logo on it.
Well, I thought that was for Spectrum.
It could. I don't know.
It's a reference to an old 80s.
Yeah.
Because he's even running like some kind of DOS operating system. It's not even got like any kind of Windows or Mac OS.
I get it's to emphasise how badly this place is doing, but also maybe to emphasise how outdated the publishing world is.
Yeah.
So Bojack receives a copy of the book and he starts reading it.
Best line in the episode coming up.
So just before he reads it, he says, "Bojack, this is you." The title of the book is One Trick Pony, which straight away gives quite a strong message of what the book is about to Bojack and gives us a message as well. But it's a pretty disparaging title. It's not. It's clever, but it's a negative context.
Yes.
To start a book. Diane starts the book by reminding us about the first time she met Bojack and how he was puking cotton candy off the balcony. But I thought that was nice that it brought us back to one of the first moments that they had together and something early on in the episode. Mm-hmm. He continues reading the book on his phone, and with each line that he reads, he moves to a different part of the room. And he sort of, each time he moves to a more hidden place or a more like secretive place where he's sort of demonstrating that he's not comfortable with the content, or he might even be scared of the content of the book.
Also demonstrates the passage of time.
Yes, yeah.
He's moving around the room and it cuts to various
Yes, yeah, he's reading the whole
jump forward in time.
Yeah. So he says a couple of lines here from the book, but the one that we actually just took a bit of time to go back and readdress was this line where he says, "He filled the air with words terrified of silence, as one often does who is smart enough to recognize his many personal failings, but unwilling or unable to take the steps to fix them."
Yeah.
That was the line that stuck with you, wasn't it?
It just perfectly summarises Bojack. And I think it cuts deep for some people that might be watching as well. In fact, I think it's an affliction that applies to
that's what I was
most people.
Well, that's what I was almost going to say. Like, is it almost a phrase that you could just apply to anyone, so it actually isn't that smart?
But you have to have a level of self-awareness
to recognise that in everybody.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you made me. So I didn't actually write that down the first time, but we went back to get it right. The more I'm looking into it as well, the more I'm appreciating it. I'm just sat here reading. That's not very interesting for the podcast, is it? You were saying about it's quite hard to hear that about yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's suggesting that you're not as perfect or nice as you think you are.
I think,
but you also don't have the ability to not be nice or not perfect. Without unable or unwilling.
No, I think it's I think it cuts on so many levels, because it's basically saying that you're smart enough to know what your failings are. In a way, it's like it's suggesting that if you're ignorant of your own shortcomings, that's more acceptable because you don't know that there's something there to fix. Whereas if you are aware of your own shortcomings and you're still unwilling to fix them, there's a maliciousness there.
Why do I feel like, I don't, you made me think about the malicious when you said that. Maliciousness.
Maybe malicious is too hard. Intent.
Yeah, no, because not to quote Diane from later in the episode, but the sympathetic way that she says she's portrayed Bojack would mean that it's more acceptable to know that you have failings and you can't do anything about them.
No, that's not what she's saying.
No.
She's saying that
Yeah.
he should be able to do something about it.
Or is unwilling or unable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that leaves it quite open, actually, doesn't it?
It's such a, like, it really made me sit up and take notice when that line came up, because it's such a damning indictment. I think this whole scene is just quite shocking because it's not what you're expecting.
No, okay, I'll go on. Yeah, let's talk about that then. So,
Yeah, it's a real plot twist, I think.
Okay, what did you think the book was going to be like? Or did you think we would get the book or not get the book?
I thought we'd get the book later. I didn't think we'd get the book as early as we have.
Okay.
But I thought that it was, like Bojack says when he's talking to her in the last scene, I thought it was going to be his memoirs, his life.
Yeah, so like a biography.
Not like a psychological deconstruction of this awful person.
Yeah.
Because also the big twist is that throughout this whole time, we've been under the assumption that, yes, Bojack has feelings for Diane, but those feelings are reciprocated and that Diane thinks fondly of Bojack.
So you don't think you can think fondly of someone and use this phrase of recognises as failings and is unwilling
I think she can still be interested in him, but it was unexpected. You would expect someone that's creating a work of art for someone else, about someone else, to be more flattering.
Right, okay.
Or at least not as so horrendously accusatory.
I was going to say, it's not malicious, is it?
It's true. Everything she says is true. You wouldn't, I don't know, Agile, which you wouldn't expect the truth.
Yeah, do you know what I did actually write? I didn't write that sentence that we've gone back to look at, but I did write the line where, particularly the last line, for a moment he said nothing. I thought that stuck out to me, actually. Because again, I don't know why I've missed that line that we've gone up, because I've sort of written, like, it suggests that he's always saying something. Mm-hmm. He's always got something to say on any of these issues. And what is that hiding if someone's always saying something?
I'll tell you what it's hiding. It's hiding in a self-awareness and an unwillingness.
It is, yeah.
To change.
So Bojack goes up to the roof where Diane is sat. So Bojack says, "What the shit is this?" holding his phone with a copy of the book on it. And Diane replies with, well, it's rather flippantly, well, it's a phone. Well, it's a tiny computer, really, because she's trying to avoid the conversation that Bojack's actually bringing up. Bojack says, "You were supposed to ghostwrite my memoirs, but instead you wrote a story about how you spent 6 months with me and saw what a big dumb loser I was." He's picking out he's seeing all the negative stuff that she's saying about it. And he's calling out that you didn't do the job that we paid you for.
Also, notice that he says that you're... What does he say?
What I just said?
Yeah.
You spent 6 months with me and saw what a big dumb loser I am.
Yeah. Not portraying me as a big dumb loser.
Yes.
You saw me for who I really am. You saw what a big dumb loser I am. Which is an interesting choice of words. Yeah.
Is this the thing that he's always been scared of, which is his failing, so he doesn't want to acknowledge it and fit it, so he's deep down for some reason he thinks he's a loser.
Yeah.
Diane tries to explain herself, and she says the best way to encapsulate you, warts and all. And Bojack interrupts her by saying, "This isn't warts and all, it's just warts. Where's the all? I come off like a total arsehole." And Diane counters with, "You come off as complex, deeply troubled, but ultimately sympathetic." Do you think that's how you see Bojack at the moment? Or I'm thinking if the book is the TV show, is that a metaphor for the TV show and Diane's writing about him? Do you don't feel that quite fits yet? That's how I see Bojack. Like, you know how you talk about you hate Bojack, and I feel like you don't enjoy watching him or
I don't.
whatever it is. Like, it's very negative.
I don't feel. I don't feel any sympathy for.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay. I suppose that, like I say, that sums up how I feel about him. Bojack says there's an entire chapter about me eating apple fritters. And she says, well, you did go through that fritter phrase. He goes on to say, is this book how you see me? That day we ran errands together, I thought we had a good time. But you just wrote about how I cried because the dry cleaner took my headshot down. And Diane says, you were very emotional. And Bojack says, they didn't even replace me with anyone. Now it's just a faded spot where my face used to be. Obviously, it's a representation of his career. Mm-hmm. But I just like the
imagery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
very evocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where Diane tries to use the phrase that Bojack said earlier. And she says, I mean, you're just a dumb actor who doesn't know anything about books, right? Because that's what he said earlier. And Bojack says, I don't think you know what's happening here. This is not a casual conversation between friends. This is your boss telling his employee that she did a bad job. Try again. This was Bojack coming out of the friendship role here and the relationship that they have been developing. And he's now saying, no, we're not friends. Like, maybe it's to Guy. Now maybe he feels like he's been betrayed by being so open. He has to put walls up again and be like, no, I'm a boss, you're an employee. You had a job to do, you've not done it.
But earlier on when I said I'm not sympathetic to Bojack, I think in this situation I am.
No, I think there's definitely a point about and what she does later as well in this episode where she leaks the book.
Oh,
she's not being very easy to work with.
It's a dick move.
Yes.
It's a proper dick move.
I also feel that maybe Bojack feels like he's been betrayed a bit by her and she's been fake. She's been a bit fake with him. Especially when he says about, oh, we had like such a nice day together and all you've done is...
Yeah, I think about it. This is one of the rare occasions when I'm actually on Bojack's side.
So we're starting to see sympathy, mate.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of sympathy. Yeah. And you said, maybe I'm a bit sympathetic in this role.
Yeah.
Bojack walks away saying nobody is ever going to see this. This leads Diane to call her ex-boyfriend Wayne very angrily, and she tells him she's got something that he's going to love. And she makes a bit of a dig at the type of journalism about smileys or hearts or however you measure your journalism, she says. Yeah. Back on set, it looks very different. And Bojack is now hanging from a crane in a green suit. And the Bojack character now has a space helmet and a cape on. And the Diane character is now being played by a ball on a stick. At the end of this scene that they're acting in, Bojack says, this is ridiculous. Is this even a movie anymore? Which causes Todd to say, oh, maybe it isn't a movie. And Quentin and Todd now go down another avenue of nonsense. Bojack then finds Naomi and he tells her what a bad day he's had. And he's about to tell her that he's falling in love with her. And Naomi says she's been fired and she's been acting as Diane all this time. And she even says that Bojack has actually been falling in love with Diane. Mm-hmm. So Bojack goes outside and looks confused about what's going on. And Quentin tells him that the film now has gone through many iterations. At first, it was an interactive social media experience. Then it was a floating art installation. Then it was a high-end perfume. But they finally settled on a bi-monthly curated box of snacks. Not the bi-monthly that means twice a month, but the bi-monthly that means every other month.
I did like that joke, because no one knows really.
And I think both are acceptable.
Yeah. As for the overarching joke of the deflection of this film,
creative process that's gone too far.
Not a clue.
For me, it's just a jab at creatives going too far. And actually how this is where you need a little bit of structure and someone that isn't creative potentially to be like, no, this is nonsense. Like, what you're doing doesn't make sense.
That should be the role of the producer, really.
Well, maybe it should, yeah, but Mr. Peanut Butter's too obsessed with
That's true.
changing.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point, really. That the producer really doesn't care about the overall thing, and he just cares about Mr. Peanut Butter's not featured after the revelation that you can put sunglasses on a crew neck. He literally disappears from the show after that, doesn't he?
Well, there's a moment next where he says, "Finally, my story has been told."
Okay. Yeah.
So he just accepts whatever's going on. But this is also where Lenny Turtletub arrives back on set after getting some food and asks what's happened to the movie. And he's looking very confused about this whole situation because it's not how he when he left the movie, it seemed like just a standard rom-com, but now he's seen the other side of it where it's this box of snacks. Bojack pulls Todd to one side and says, "I get it. You destroyed my big chance at a comeback as revenge for what I did to your rock opera." To which Todd says, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That would have been such a good idea." He adds he's been trying to put what Bojack did behind him and just get on with his job. This is where Bojack realizes that Todd's not trying to sabotage him. And I think this is also where we realize that as well, because also like the tone in how Todd has been saying some of the comments earlier sounded like revenge.
Yep.
And maybe is that again the writers putting us in the shoes of Bojack and seeing how Bojack sees the world. Like someone else might have just seen Todd having a casual conversation with the director, or Todd might even look at it in a different way, like, "Oh, I really want to get this point across to the director," and he might not even realise Bojack was in the room when they were saying it. This is Bojack's perspective that we've just seen.
I didn't see Todd cutting down Bojack's role when I was watching it.
What do you mean? What kind?
I just saw Todd being stupid and making stupid decisions.
Right? Yeah.
Because it's Todd.
Yeah.
I never saw.
You didn't think he was trying to be malicious.
It might have gone over my head or something, but I didn't see that malicious intent from Todd. I literally just saw Todd doing the usual Todd things and make ridiculous suggestions, and somehow the story spiraling from that.
No, I think I definitely agree with like that's part of it, and I think there's some lines that he says where that's more of the case. Yeah. But I also think there's a couple of lines where I actually felt like he was trying to dig at Bojack.
I didn't see that.
But Todd goes on to say, actually, everything's not cool. He says that rock opera was something he cared about, and what Bojack did really hurt him. After Bojack offers him a little revenge by thumping him in the stones, as he puts it, Todd walks off to gauge the mouthfeel of some artisanal popcorn, which I presume is for this box of snacks that they're creating.
It sounds like a wonderful activity.
Gauging the mouthfeel.
I would love to gauge the mouthfeel of some artisanal popcorn.
Do you think you'd be good at gauging the mouthfeel?
I would, yeah.
On a scale, you'd put it on a scale of 1 to 10.
I think I'm more critical of texture than
okay, yeah, particularly popcorn.
I think popcorn generally has a pretty consistent texture. But actually, no, it depends. If you get that butter kissed stuff, that's way too crunchy and like covered in.
Right.
Whereas proper popcorn, the cinema, like has that drier, slightly soft.
Maybe that's So while Bojack stood outside, all the crew of the set start teasing him about apple fritters. And Bojack realizes that everyone's laughing about an article that's been released about some facts from Diane's book that is about him. He then starts panicking and frantically trying to gather everybody's phones up, but he ends up basically just making a bigger fool of himself. He uses phrases like, "The internet has gone bad. Give me your phones. I'm a celebrity. You have to do what I say." But he runs off and he runs up to Diane and confronts her again. She says that she leaked the first couple of chapters and the comments are great. And they will love him even more when they read the rest of my book. So here, and Bojack calls it out. He says, "your book." And Diane tries to correct herself by saying "our book." I think everyone would probably agree that she's stepped out of line here. And Bojack has a right to be angry. It's a very different book to what she was employed to write. But even the way that she says my book, I think is quite telling of it's her work.
Yeah. She's going to write whatever she wants, regardless of anyone else involved in the project.
Yes. Yeah.
Although when she starts talking about how people are going to love it, and you should see the comments and stuff, that did give me the impression that Diane's smart and she knows what she's doing. So there was a part then that I was like, oh, maybe she has done this altruistically. Like maybe she's done this specifically to humanize Bojack.
Yes.
So that his relationship to the public, which is a big problem,
Yeah.
will be healed because they'll see that he's a flawed, like she talks about like the sympathetic nature of like their relationship.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe Diane's not completely out of line, but she's out of line by not
doing what she was
supposed to do, and not at least telling him beforehand. But going forward in future episodes, I can see there's a through line where this book actually does have a positive effect on Bojack's future and the public perception of him.
I was just going to ask a question of, do you think that she's deliberately written the book for people actually to like him, or does just learning more about someone humanize them? Just the more is it literally just like she's not tried to be like, she's not picked and chosen certain bits where she's been like that, although it's negative, people will like that. She's literally just opened the gates. Yeah. And by its nature, learning more about someone humanizes them.
Yes, but
maybe she knows that as well.
But I also think that the book that she knows the book that she's written will sell more than a book.
Okay,
it was. So like her book, like it is her book because she was asked to write a book just about Bojack's life and about his memoirs. Whereas she's done her own thing because she believes that it will A, sell better, B, be a better read, and C, help Bojack's relationship to the public.
Yeah. Diane then says she stands by her work, and if he gives it time, he will see. Bojack then sighs and says, maybe you're right, leading us to think that Diane has convinced him. And Diane says, really? And Bojack then finishes the episode by saying, no, you're fired. So this leaves us in doubts, obviously, of what the relationship's going to be like in the future. We don't know whether this book's going to get released. I don't know whether they're going to make up, whether she's going to release the book that she was employed to release.
After the comment, the comment that really swayed it is when she said, you should see the comments, they love you.
Yes. So you think...
Because that's direct feedback from the public.
So you think he's going to see it and then be like, oh, actually, they do love it. Yeah. Let's release the book.
Yeah. That changed my whole view of this situation.
Okay.
Like I said before, I was like, Diane, what a dick. She's throwing Bojack under the bus. She's done it for her own 15 minutes of fame. But then, and she's like, no, people will like you and they do like you. And you should read the comments that are coming in already. Then I was like, oh, maybe Diane is good at what she does. And she's made this choice for a specific reason. So that one comment of, oh, you should see what people are commenting, they like you. If that's true, then that completely changes the complexion of this.
So it's whether she's just saying that to try and convince.
I don't think she would.
Okay. You think she'll be honest? Well, he would just read the comments anyway.
Yeah. And Diane she's many things, but I don't think she's that kind of deceitful, straight up liar.
So, favourite visual joke. I've written the crew carrying the crew of ants carrying all the equipment together. Did I say yours? Did I mention yours? Because you said you had one.
I like the cat scratching in the gym, but I think my favourite pure visual joke is when Bojack shows Mr. Peanut Butter hanging his sunglasses on. Just that whole interaction. I thought was really good.
Yes, he's gobsmacked by it, isn't he? And I also think probably Bojack's he's proved Mr. Peanut Butter wrong, so he's won.
He's very nonchalant about it. He just does it.
Yeah. So, favourite line from the episode? Yeah. I presume yours is the one that we went back to look at, from in the book. I was expecting to see he looked out into the ocean and for a moment he was silent. I thought that was going to be my favourite line, but I do like this other line. They didn't even replace me with anything. Now there's just a faded spot where my face used to be. I quite just, it's really, really nice. So, Matthew, give us your final thoughts and rating for the episode.
I thought the episode overall was a bit bland. The whole concept of them making this film about the stealing the D, I just think it's a bit weak. I don't know if you describe it as meta or what, but a story that's happened in Bojack Horseman is now being remade as a film in Bojack Horseman. But the fact that it takes all different twists and turns and like Todd's ridiculous arc, I didn't enjoy that particularly. Like I said, Quentin Tarantulino or whatever his name is, pretty one-dimensional character. I was happy that Turtleman turned up again because I do like him. For me, the whole episode is saved by the book reveal at the end. I don't know if I'd go so far. I'll say I was bored. Okay. I was bored watching the episode. Yeah. And then the book.
This is a significant thing.
Oh yeah, it was. This has really made me sit up and take notice. Okay. I think it was like a real plot twist, a real left turn, and I wasn't expecting it at all. So kudos, that's good writing. So yeah, the entire episode is saved by the book reveal. So I will say I'd give a 6.
Okay.
6 out of 10. Before the book reveal, I'd say 4.
Okay.
But the book reveal has bumped it up 2 places, 2 points.
Okay, that's good. So one thing that I just wanted to point out that I haven't mentioned all the way through the episode is I thought it was quite interesting how in most of the scenes you're led from scene to scene with a character moving to the next conversation, physically moving to a different place.
Okay.
So this whole episode is set at Mr. Peanut Butter's house. There's only one location, although we see like 5 or 6 different locations within the house. But actually, they sort of
there's a couple of
there's cut scenes. So go on.
The princess is at the gym.
Okay, but she's on the phone to Bojack that's in the house.
Oh, you mean she's not actually physically there?
No, it's not. It's not exactly like that because there is some. It's not exactly like that, how I've just said, because there is scenes that do just jump and you're in a room with 2 different people. But I think more scenes than not, you're led to the next scene with the character that was just talking, which I thought was quite interesting. I feel like, again, we're getting a bit of I feel like I might be getting a little bit bored of the jokes about actors and directors taking themselves too seriously.
Okay.
I feel like it's being mentioned a lot, particularly like the Hollywood stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like it's a reoccurring joke, but it's not really developing. But maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe it's just a nice joke to have in the background. I was surprised by Todd not doing what he was doing to get back at Bojack. I feel like I remember it the first time as well, where I presumed Todd was maybe not deliberately, maybe not consciously enacting revenge on Bojack, but at least subconsciously enacting it, because all the points he's making are not what Bojack wants. Mm-hmm. So he might not have been doing it deliberately, but subconsciously he was doing it.
Yeah.
And then when he reveals that he wasn't doing it, I thought that was a nice change on perspective. And yeah, I suppose like you as well, I am really intrigued about, well, I'm not because I've seen the whole thing, but I like the new conflict between Bojack and Diane because they've been so close and now they seem very far apart and I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Okay, so that's what I'll say about the end of this episode is I'm actually quite excited to see what happens next.
Okay.
It's quite a good cliffhanger.
You said that, I feel like you said that with Say Anything as well, where Bojack's going to see her.
Yes,
and you don't know.
You see the aftermath of what happened.
So I hope it's not like that for you again.
It's so depressing.
I gave this episode a 6.5.
Okay. Is that your lowest score so far?
No, I think I gave something a 6. The IMDb rating is a 7.6.
These Bojack fans.
I don't know whether that's
2000.
the lowest Bojack, the lowest IMDb, actually. But yeah, I think we're both a bit under the average for that. So thank you for listening. In the next episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 11, Downer Ending. Thank you for listening.